Okay, really happy to have Ridgefield Tigers head coach of the boys team and three-time FCAC champion, Coach Andrew McClellan with us today. I'm going to just get my computer set up here so we're good to go. And yeah, so welcome, Andrew. Thanks for taking the time.
Hey, Jeff, I'm just glad to be helping you out with this. I'm excited that we're kind of expanding our our width with this adventure. So, and I appreciate your work with it. So, I look forward to getting the students involved, and it should be fun for everybody.
Yeah, me too. And what Coach Mack is referring to is that we're going to be able to broadcast some of the games from Tiger Stadium there over our huddle feed because of the COVID restrictions. We're not sure what the fan situation is going to be, and we're going to try to add some enrichment to that. We're going to have some students doing some play-by-play during the year. The scrimmage tonight is kind of a test run, and we're going to have interviews like this. And we also interviewed Captain Amos Gray that'll be interviewing or playing tonight as well. So, listen, I had to look it up. You know, it's been March 5th, 2020 was the last time you coached the boys Tigers team. It was a pretty good game, good result for the Tigers. What have you been doing since then, and how do you think your team's been prepared for starting basketball again?
Well, obviously, it's been the most uneven and difficult off season since I've been, coaching, I guess in general, but since I've been the head coach at Ridgefield. We were able to do some workouts and some practices with our off season coaches and everything else. So we got a little bit of, we got some stuff in over the off season. Not a typical off season at all. I think we ended up because of COVID playing 2 fall league games, where a normal off season it has a bunch of practices and workouts and 8 or 10 games in the summer and then 8 or 10 more games in the fall. So a very uneven off season, and then practically a total shutdown in December and January, where we couldn't really do very much at all. So that off season was difficult for the kids. I'm just happy to be back in the gym with them. With these masks on, it's a little bit different, but after you get going, it's just basketball practice, and the coaches and I think the coaches and the players are thrilled to be back in the gym.
Yeah, I'm sure the fans are thrilled to watch too. How do you think the masks might affect gameplay? Do you think you're going to have a different substitution pattern to account for masking, or is it just going to be business as usual and just deal with it?
Yeah, I do think it's going to be different. I think it's going to be an adjustment. It has been an adjustment. One of the things that we're instilling in practice is, we're really being strict on the mask wearing for obvious reasons. But you have a mask on, so it's harder to breathe. We play a particular brand of basketball that I think is difficult to play without a mask on for 5 minutes in a row. So yeah, I think we are going to have to sub a little bit more. One of the things that when we're kind of sketching this out, there's a 4-minute mask break every quarter. I think that will help a little bit. So there's a minute-long mask break in there, but absolutely we're going to have to experiment a little bit more with how long a kid can go for a stretch. We rarely play kids for more than 5 minutes in a row in a non-COVID, non-mask game until, like the very end of the game, fourth quarter, like there's situational stuff. But those are things that we do anyway. But I think this year those runs will be even less.
Yeah, Amos let us know about some protocols in practice and some push-ups that are assessed if there's some mask violations. So yeah, you're going to have some big-chested kids probably.
Actually, it's one of these things where after you do it a couple times, like it's really not an issue. And like what happens is during the game, during the playing of basketball, like the mask gets knocked down, or just through the movement, like it'll move down, and obviously we're not making them do push-ups or a reinforcement at that point, but if they don't fix it right away. But really what was happening is like they would just, we'd be running or they'd be running and they just slide it down under their nose.
Yeah.
So it only took a couple days. The varsity's been really good with that. And so I don't really notice it. We haven't had anybody do anything like that in probably a week. And then, one of the things is like, if they need a mask break, they can go to the side of the gym or, leave the gym. And everyone's been pretty good about that. And they've started to adjust a little bit. I think they're, you can't totally get used to the mask. It's difficult to coach in a mask. So I can only imagine how hard it is to play the style of basketball that we're asking these boys to play.
Yeah. You want to talk a little bit about last year's team and this year's team? You graduated 7 seniors and many and most of them key elements of your success last season. But I would consider this a pretty inexperienced team. Maybe it's a young team, but there's a lot of experience traveling through the ranks here. How do you like how things are shaping up with this year's?
Yeah, so like last year's team is it's the greatest. I don't want to say it's the greatest sports team that ever played at Ridgefield, but it's certainly the greatest basketball team that's ever played at Ridgefield. And their 4-year run is it's legendary. It's history making. So that aside, the players that we have back, and we talk about this a little bit with them, like a lot of them, 4 or 5 of them would have had huge roles, were good enough to have huge roles, and at certain parts of the season did have huge roles with our team. But because we had so many good players and we were so deep, that the Matt Ivans and the Emin O'Malley's and the Matthew Nichols, and even Amos Gray, like they just played lesser roles because there were just other guys that were a little bit better than them, a little bit more experienced than them. So, what we're finding out right now in these practices is that we have plenty of talent. There's plenty of good players in the gym. We're a little bit immature on the process of things. And I remember I did a podcast last year. Who knows it? I guess it was in early January. I was going to say this time of the year, but they just don't match up. Early January, and it talked about how our team was a little bit immature. And now I look back at that and I laugh because, by the end of that year, that was, like a team that you could say one thing to in a practice or a game and they just, okay, coach. And those players would, lead the way or lead the charge of getting it back together. But we're immature and spurty right now, and we're really really focused. The players are really focused on the results. And what we're trying to do is, we're trying to teach them the process, and we're more worried about, like the process of it and the intent of what we're doing versus the result of it. And that's something they're starting to get. And, it's a process. But one of the things that happened this off season is because they only played 2 games together. And then, like this exact group probably didn't play any games together of those 2 games. They just didn't get enough game time, either AAU or fall league or summer league, to experience some of this stuff. And the way that kids are is, you kind of have to have actual failure, not a parent or a coach telling you, hey, this is not going to work. This isn't good enough. They have to see it on the court. And they weren't able to, we just haven't had those opportunities through this off season. So as good as these players are, I think it's going to be a little bit more growing pains at the beginning of the season because of our inexperience and the way the off season went.
Yeah. And so how do you think, are you concerned with this sprint type of scenario we have here? You have a 12 games regular season, 6 home, 6 away, I believe.
Yep.
Not a lot of room for those learning games, right?
Yeah.
You can't have a bad half, let alone a bad shift maybe this season. And
Yep.
how is that going to affect how you coach these guys and what their expectations are? And just to add on to that, who are your go-to guys? I feel like last year's team, when you needed a bucket, you could have maybe flipped a card and anyone could have pulled it off for you. Do you have that flexibility with this year's team?
Yeah. So let first, I'd be a hypocrite yes, it is a race. It's a sprint more than it's ever been. But I'd be a hypocrite to not accept and expect and preach that this is a process. So yeah, there are going to be bumps at the beginning. So, like when you say you can't afford to, do this or that, like what happens if we fall down, or there are bumps in the road, like we lose a game or we lose 2 games. Like we're just happy to be getting games right now. And that's the way you can take last season as an outlier, but like all of our seasons we've had success, but we're not quick starters. Like I look back, and a lot of seasons were 1-2 or 2-2 or 2-3. And then by the end of the season, March, late February, we feel like we've really improved a lot, and that's when our teams get going. So, like there's a little bit more urgency to try to get that going faster. But right now, like, we don't have a choice. Like we have an inexperienced team, and we have a sprint here. So we're gonna try to figure it out. Like, listen, we have a really good culture, and we have a really good system, and our kids are good in it. So, I think they need to see some success, and we'll be fine. And I think they will. The big question for us is when there's adversity, it's like you said, like who is going to be the person that leads us through that? And I think that's an unknown right now. Like, I think the natural people to do that for us are the people that have the ball in their hands, which will be Captain Amos Gray and Matthew Nakel, who are 2 point guards or playmakers. And that's one thing that'll be different this year. The ball will be in 2 people's hands a lot more than, like all 5 people's hands last year. But I'd say those 2 people, are going to drive the bus and give us, what our ceiling is. So if we can get those guys going, they're both really good players. And, I think they're probably both top 5 point guards in the FCAC, and we have both of them. So I think they'll set up other people. And as soon as they start to get comfortable and confident, whenever that happens, that's when you'll see the Tigers play their best basketball.
Yeah, and one of those guys has an all-defense honor from last year, and I think young Nakel, from what I see, could probably have one this year, right? And
Yep.
So there's still a Nakel on the team, but it's a different player than last year's Nakel, and I think Matthew is very talented and is going to bring a lot to the Tigers this year as well. So I'm excited to see him.
Yeah. So I mean, Matthew is probably arguably as good of a defensive player as Amos. Just didn't get as much playing time, so didn't get the recognition. But yeah, like, I mean, Matthew doesn't have many holes in his game. I think probably his only hole in his game is his size. He's worked on, size and strength in the off season. I think he's ready to have a tremendous year. And I think the only thing that holds him back is, trying to fit in to everybody else. And, sometimes we need him to take the lead a little bit more. He's such a, casual, wants everyone else to, respect and like him. And we'd like him to be a little bit more selfish offensively for sure.
Yeah, I look forward to watching him mature. I think he's a killer in waiting here. He's going to be really good. So we're going to wrap it up, Coach. I appreciate your time. Good luck to the Tigers tonight. We'll be watching, and hopefully the student broadcast during the season bring a lot of fans, even though they can't be there. I know we'll have a lot of people watching and cheering for you guys. So good luck to you and the boys, and I'll be there in spirit, and I'll be calling the game tonight from home. So I'll be jumping around my office here instead of the stands, right?
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be impartial on the call. I appreciate this, Jeff, and like I said, we're just trying to, give whatever we can in this weird time, as much normalcy, and hopefully, like, streaming these games and broadcasting the games gives a little bit of pleasure, 2 or 3 nights a week to the Tiger fans out there.
Yeah, hopefully the grandparents and people across the country will tune in watching Tiger basketball, and I know you'll put on a good show. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Coach. Yep.
Hey,
all right, be well.